I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you all join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll start off with approval of the December 5th regular meeting minutes as presented. Any discussion? Okay. No, go
Make a
ahead.
motion to accept them as submitted. Second.
Motion seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those are approved. Approval of the CSE recommendations. Any discussion on those? We'd have to do an exec. There's no CPSE report this month.
Right.
We're just approving one.
Make a motion to approve it. Second.
Motion is seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are carried. No public comment? No one here? Public. So we'll go on to discussion items. First up is strategic plan step report.
Yeah,
Don?
we got postponed for a second time. We're gonna we scheduled on the Wednesdays of a Monday, because we got wiped out 2 Mondays in a row, so. But, so that'll come back, January meeting. We have a meeting scheduled after the holiday, and we'll come back with that report. And then it'll be followed by another one, like 2 months later, because we're late on this one in the first quarter, but we'll get there.
Okay. Second, we have committee charters, direction on development. Kevin?
Sure. Yeah, so this is an item that I had requested to get into the discussion. Committee charters first came to my attention. There was an article in Onboard in August. I'm not sure if everybody saw it, but I recommend you take a look at it. And there was actually a webinar in June of this year that Corey pointed me to, talked about committee charters. What are they? They're basically guiding documents that outlines purposes of the committee and how they operate. These are not a requirement for us to prepare, but the idea is that it would help us be more efficient in our operation, would help to clarify the expectations and streamline the committee work. One of the main reasons why I became interested in them is that they help to pass on the intent of the committees to board members who are coming off. So that was one of the struggles that I've had coming on, is just understanding what's the intent of each of the committees and what's everybody's role on them. So the idea is that we have standing committees, we have charters that would outline what the expectations are and roles that as people come on and come off, that we can just pass that on board committee members more efficiently. NISBA actually has a standard template for committee charters. I can share a copy of it after the meeting, but it was presented as an attachment to that webinar from June. And basically they have a few main components. There's a mission statement, talks about membership, authority, responsibilities, meetings, and then reporting requirements. So I just wanted to bring it up, for discussion here, just to kind of talk generally about how we might move something like that forward, and if there was, general interest in doing something.
I think, first of all, I think that's one of the things that we've always missed. I know when I came on 6 years ago, it was kind of like find your way through what are we doing, why are we doing policy, what is policy, why. This lays the groundwork when people come on. I think that's the most important point, is to what the expectations are for the committee. It gives it better structure. It would allow us to actually point, if I understand correctly, committee chairs. So we would be able to say, Dick, you're responsible for reporting out on finance. Here's what the expectations are. Your time commitment on those can be roughly outlined. You can kind of outline when are the meetings going to be in finance, when are they, when are you going to meet the heaviest, what kind of time is going to be involved in that. So oncoming board members can have a better understanding of the overall picture of why are we doing committee work, how much is it involved in the committee work, what the missions are. We're not obligating future boards to operate, so there's no issues there. But I think any board coming on, any new board member coming on would appreciate that structure that right now we don't have. We just basically, in July, we sit down and say reorg, okay, committees, who wants to be on the committees? And it's effective, we do a good job, but I think this would add the background to the why, and more importantly, the time commitment, and what the expectations are for them. So if everybody's in favor of that, I think the best thing we could do is take it back to policy and kind of do the rough outline, one or two at a time for the existing committees we have. Use the structures that NISBA has that we can follow where they're already assigned to a policy committee, something like
Tweak them
that.
as we need.
And the other ones we can develop. So I think it's the final piece that we really need from an organizational standpoint. I'm glad you brought it up and have been pushing us to keep it on the forefront of our agenda. So
I think it's a good idea.
The only question or thought that I have on you with that whole thing is like with some of them, I've not served on those committees, yet serving on a policy committee. So would it be worth the time for each committee to kind of produce, lacking a better term, a punch list of what they do, summary list, and then send it to policy for an overview, and then it would kind of adopt it into a policy format? Because I think each committee would be better at giving, like with the facilities, I've been on it since I've been on the board.
Right.
I can give you a better idea what the time is committed to that committee, where I can't with finance, or I can't with curriculum.
Well, let's get the templates first. Give each committee the templates that, for their committee, and then we can start reviewing them that way, and then give them to policy. to
And I
actually-
think if policy picks them up one or two at a time, and that's the focus for that month, to kind of like bring them in
Right.
and get them adopted, we can take all of that existing framework, kick it out to that committee and their members for those population of those areas, then kick it back us to just formalize it. I think that's a great idea, because respectively, I haven't been on all committees either, so, I think it's a great idea.
And we have a little bit of a jump start because we have the charter for the audit committee, and we have the, what do you call it?
Curriculum.
Charter, but we have curriculum, so there's two, but they can be reviewed. Not a bad
Right.
idea to get a fresh look.
And then we would adopt each one of these charters.
Mhm.
Okay.
And charters can be revised as your needs change
Sure.
down the road.
Yeah, they actually recommend you review them annually, make updates as needed.
So they're exhibits, right? So they don't necessarily have to go through first and second reading.
I don't know, I'd have to
That's
look into
charter.
that.
Not according to NISBA, from what I've read.
I think it'd have to be adopted.
They're just attachments.
So let's look at it, research, if everybody's in favor of it, then that's the direction we'll head. And then we'll start doing the legwork on it. Any preference as to, you want to start with the existing charters that we have, so that we have a feel for the templates and the inputs to them? So that would be,
Most important one is
Curriculum and-
would probably be the audit, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the one that's
Right.
got the most legal.
Audit's the only one that's actually required.
Right.
so let's pull up, do you want to work on audit and curriculum as the first two?
Sure.
Fortunately.
Well, and then we'll meet and we'll figure out some timeframes with it, and then we'll get the expectations out to everybody. But those two exist, so let's start with those two. And we'll kick them to policy to look at, and respectively, we'll kick them to the curriculum. The curriculum, we'll go to the curriculum committee for what they view as the time inputs and what the important pieces are, and we'll do the same with audit.
With our next policy meeting, is it worth trying to put like a questionnaire together for the other committees so that we're all going down the same chart, same
You want to
format?
develop that in policy first, and then put it out to these two committees, then get the feedback on it, and then formalize it and
For
bring it back.
format.
I mean, formatting
NISBA
purposes.
has a
NISBA,
guide that has
right.
the
Yep.
questions. that
They have a
you-
very good guide.
yeah,
Okay.
You
Let's
just
go through
basically
that
ask the
process.
questions and just answer them,
All right.
and that builds your charter.
Well,
There's actually, the one example they provided is a policy charter. It's fully written.
Yeah.
You just change words as needed.
all right.
So the policy committee could just start with that the next meeting. Might be pretty close to a charter for the policy committee.
So,
That's the other way to look at it. Policy committee could take it on and create their own, and then you got the format
Right.
to utilize for the other charters.
okay.
And then put it out to the other.
Okay, if everybody's good with that, we'll start with the policy charter. We'll get the format for that, and then we'll kick that out, and then the next two we'll focus on will be audit and curriculum. Does that work?
Okay.
All right, cool. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, legislative advocacy discussion.
Me again?
I think Dr. Dell had
Kevin
recommended.
brought it forward.
considering it.
Yeah, I've got a few bullet points that I had mentioned
Yep.
briefly, part of it in the last, I think, meeting ago.
Mhm.
But my thoughts are, regionally, there's actually a legislative committee regionally with CSAs that takes a look at the major advocacy groups, NISBA, NISCUS, and they build our regional statement that's used with all the advocacy meetings. And that's what drives the legislative breakfast. So between those two things, one, provide that regional advocacy, go to legislative breakfast, see how that goes, and then as a board or as a district, we decide after that, our needs are such that aren't answered there, we want to go and advocate, then we can make those meetings after that legislative breakfast. But there's a great turnout, there's opportunity for individual conversations there, opportunity for everybody to stand and ask whatever you want to ask. And it's been well received in the last few years. Last year, there was even an individual from the governor's office representative. So that's my suggestion, is that we go to that first and then decide our direction, where we want to go after that. Some years you may say, we're good, we'll hold. And other years we may say, no, let's make some appointments here and have some conversations.
So that would be January 27th breakfast meeting
Correct.
at 9? Okay.
Yep.
So we need to have reservations in by the 10th. Right now, I think, I haven't checked the basketball schedule, but I think that's a good date for me.
I will
think I can
actually
attend.
be at a legislative meeting in
That day?
Delhi that day. So I'm kind of interested to see who's going to show up at which ones,
What time is one in Delhi?
9 o'clock.
I wonder if they know that.
Well, I just confirmed with our Republican chair, how much feedback has she gotten? She reached out to him this summer to have them put it on their schedule. So because right after they leave ours, they tend to go to the Delaware County Ag meeting.
Who would be the person, do you have a contact who coordinates that? I'll connect.
Yep, Katie Taggart.
It's Katie?
Yep.
Okay. I'll connect Allison, who does Allison and Dory do the coordinate at BOCES, because it doesn't make sense to have competing legislative events and the legislators having to split their time. It's one thing if it's 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon.
Right.
But if they're at the same time on the same date, that does not make any sense. So I'll let them know that, and they can have a conversation between them.
Okay.
I'll find Katie's
Yeah, because
contact.
usually we have the same ones, and mine is usually a week after, because I've always gone to the legislative breakfast,
Right.
at the silo or wherever. And this is the first time it's on the same date, so I thought that was interesting.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, because there's still time for somebody to adjust.
Dr. McDonald, you mentioned there's opportunity to have input to set the agenda for that meeting. What's the form for that?
There's not any for the legislative breakfast.
For you mentioned a regional.
They do a regional, they have a regional legislative committee, the
Okay.
regional superintendents do. They have a committee that's standing, and they'll come up with what their regional needs are
Okay.
and inputs are. I haven't seen a developed statement yet, but they'll come up with that statement as a collective region of
So
need.
do we have input on that?
Typically, they hit all the key points that we're hitting on. If there's a gap that we need, that we'll put in, but I'll share that when it's developed.
Okay.
And then regardless of what the regional statement is, when we're at that legislative breakfast, it's an open forum. So even if there's a need that's unique to Walton that doesn't make the regional need, that doesn't mean that we don't advocate, on ourselves. It's an independent process, but just the regional need as a collective group. But so far, it's really been very accurate
It is, yeah, it
as
definitely
far as
is.
the statement. But yeah, you have a good, you've gone a couple
A lot of
different
the
times.
schools are in the same situation, so the topic is usually right on, and then, if you have an individualized thing, you can address them, or address one individual that's
Yeah.
there, that may have more, that may be on their committee at the state level, so. Like, for instance, bringing whole milk back into the schools. Chris Tay,
Yeah.
you
And
know.
they try to make sure they're supporting each other, so NISBA is speaking for it, they try to make sure that we're not out here in left field, that we're in line as well, and then we're hitting on our unique. But, the CTE, salary increase for aid, that we mentioned last night, it's been 30,000, 30 or 35,000 since the 50s or 60s. That's been asked for the last few years. It's gaining momentum every year. I'm sure that's going to be a key item again from all those groups. And then various items from there. A lot of foundation aid formula adjustment for equity across the state, which you heard a lot of from Rick Timms. So some of those key items we're just not letting go of across the state. So, but then there's some others that are on there. So anyway, that's if you agree with that process. If not, you want a different order. You want meetings no matter what. I mean, it's up to you as a board. That's just my suggestion of process.
If we do pursue individual meetings, what's the process for that?
We call the office.
Okay.
Corey we'd get the contact and Corey would reach out, and they're very receptive, and they'd schedule and the third one is if there's a key individual or individuals that we want to invite here, we could always reach out and try to do that as well. We haven't done that in a long time, but it's been a number of years since we've had a legislator. When the first year I was here, we had Molinaro, I think it was, came down and visited through my work with the chamber, but not necessarily a school visit. In fact, I don't even think kids were here when they came.
Right.
So there's those three things that we can easily do.
Okay, so that's the 3 on legislative breakfast. Facilities committee met on December 12th. Kevin, would you like to leave a report out?
That was a while ago.
Well, refresh here, we met on towns and schools priorities.
Yes, exactly. No, we're working on our 5, 10, 15, 20-year project list for the district of moving forward. Last meeting we discussed the towns and school, and stayed focused on the towns and school, trying to lay out what our next, capital projects we'd be looking at over there and moving forward on that type of stuff. Trying to get a long-term plan in place. The other thing with that, it helps us identify any of the $100,000 projects that we can do that we don't have to wrap up in the capital, that we might go get done sooner. And that's a very general overview, because
We had 3 priority
right.
areas that we had with the bus garage as well. And there was a few items that we moved up to priority 1 as more information became available. And Mr. Jackson was here and gave us more information on, safety issue things. So we've moved a couple of things back up onto.
Safety, some of the heating issues over there, cooling issues, things like that are partially addressing, at least for the 5th grade, in that reconstruction there, but just the overall comfort of the building. Maybe people don't have to wear snow jackets walking down the hall in the winter, and lack of cooling in the summer. So we did prioritize a bunch. It's a big list, but one of the things that was on the list, I'll just give you one example, was a generator, sort of like what we did up here at the high school. And we really thought about it and said, with potentially the church just up the street being the actual Red Cross shelter, would we want a generator to power all of Townsend in a flood? We wouldn't be using that structure it is flood proofed, but it's not, you wouldn't be able to get to it, right? So it is flood proof that way. So we said, what would we really want to do? We wouldn't want to spend $500,000 of taxpayers' dollars on a full-size generator like this. Can we scale back and actually power with a small generator our essentials? So heating, cooling, refrigeration units, things like that, some general lights, just so that if we have a power outage, we don't have freezing pipes, we don't have food going bad, we don't have things of that nature. But we scaled items like that back and made it rational to say, we're not going to use this as a Red Cross shelter with water all the way around it on a flood. So just things like that we really dove into, where the 5-year plan has those things highlighted, and it's a high priority because it's an emergency use and things like that, but we've taken those looks at that and scaled some of that back. And then also progressed things off of the list that could have been priority 2s or 3s, and I hope we get a cut of that so we can share that with everybody, but things that are on our energy savings programs. You know, if NYSERDA is going to pick it up funding-wise, why would we want it to be a priority 3, right? If the funding's available, that's got to kick up immediately to a higher priority because you have to take what you can get based on the funding. So if NYSERDA says mean and green is an emphasis and we want to repower, relight, do things like that, then that's where we would look. But we really focused again, I think, on the student and staff comfort, the waterproofing of buildings. We start with the foundation and then the structure envelope, the parking lots, all that stuff has to be looked at first, and then we try to get into the more educational friendly things coming up after that. You know, we don't want to do all bricks and mortars. We'd like to, and security, I mean, obviously those things are first, but
Playground,
we want to make sure.
any safety type issues.
Yes.
You know, we need to address priority 1.
And
One of the things that makes that conversation a lengthy conversation is because you could have for example, let's say we want to straighten up the fence along the back wall by the brook. Yeah, we put our parking lot as a priority 1. Well, you don't go fix the parking lot, then dig it up to fix the fence. So I mean, it was a shuffle. You'd put one in one pigeonhole and be like, oh, no, that's got to change because that ought to be done before this. Then you pull that back out and you move it over here. And I mean, and the other thing is you're talking schools, so everybody at the table would like to see everything done on a priority 1. And you're going, that's really not, you know, the pecking order that needs to be done after this. So I mean, it gets.
And then once it's all together and then we present it to the entire board, it could change again.
Yeah,
Right.
and I expect it definitely will.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, the dollars we're talking about none of these are small dollars when it comes to school. It took how long did it take us to get our parking lots addressed up here? I mean, years and years and years of capital projects waiting. The roof systems got to the point where they leaked so bad they had to be taken care of. We don't want to get in that state again where we're really chasing things after the fact. You know, we want to be able to be as proactive as we can and as wise with the taxpayers' dollars as we can to get these projects done. But I agree with Kevin. I think a lot of things is just a matter of order. You know, if you're going to relight the parking lot, you got to put lines through it. We're not doing the parking lot first. You know, you have to get them in order. The other thing is some of the things were unfunded yet, so we didn't know costs on some of the things. Some of the smart energy, heat pumps, all those kind of things. We don't know the dollars for them. I know CWC was very good to us with our grants with the parking lots up here. Those may exist down in Townsend too. You know, those outside grant matching funds may exist down there, so we have to develop those. And if they do exist, that would kick it up in a priority because you have extra funds to deal with. So I think a lot of great discussion. I can't wait to be able to get it rolled out. But again, we're doing it, the bus garage, Townsend, and then high school, middle school. And then those are all going to get prioritized individually, and then we still have to mash them all together and say, okay, now is it this Townsend priority 1 here? Is it a high school priority 1 here? You know, we still have to have that cut, and it's going to take the full board to do that. I don't think we can do that just by ourselves in facilities.
3 priority 1s. One of them's going to end up as a 3.
Right.
I mean, it's just.
Right.
I did have a meeting on the energy study since the last facilities meeting, and that they have a hard timeline. We should see a draft sometime in March, and they are committed to having it done, ready to do an application by the end of the school year, by June. So that'll help us with our prioritizing. We should know what can fit in an application in NYSERDA, and we'll be going through that process as well. So have a new team, engineers out of Albany, some change in personnel at IBI. So, but they're moving forward with a very aggressive timeline.
Just a general question, because we were talking about heating and cooling. Do we ever get really hot in the schools? I'm asking just from the advocacy side that there's a proposed bill related to maximum temperatures in schools. I'm just curious I don't remember what the number is. It's largely city driven, but
Yeah, they didn't set a temperature, I don't think, on that. That's in discussion, but that would be a very worrisome and unfunded if they want to put funding with it. You think about a kitchen and just normal cooking in a kitchen versus a classroom. We have the middle school that does not have any air conditioning, air cooling in the wing at all, except for the office. Townsend, the upstairs with the new construction, will be cooling properly. The rest of the upstairs does not handle the heat, so it gets very warm. And then the rest of the building is not too bad. High school downstairs B wing is not cooled, but it's typically not too bad. The upstairs is cooled and it stays okay. But then of course you've got, middle school gym gets very warm. We have auditorium in the high school gym that is cooled. We do not have the playroom cooled. We do not have the auditorium, I don't think, at Townsend cooled. Or is that cooled? It is cooled.
Yeah.
The cafeteria here is not cooled, and that gets very, very warm in the summer, hot months, September, October, at the end of the year. So
I think that bill calls for school closure, right?
yes, depending on what they do as a temperature across, and that could be anywhere. So anywhere, you have to monitor it. If there's a person in that location, you have to monitor it, and if it goes above, you have to have mediation, which could include closing of school. So the only answer is to cool 100% of your space. Well, who's going to fund that, and who's going to pay the electric bill?
Right.
Here we are being pushed to go green, and now we're being pushed to increase our air conditioning that hasn't, so anyway.
I think it's another one to keep an eye on, just to.
Correct. We had advocacy, I think NISBA or one of the legislators sent that out, and I did respond on behalf of the district.
Yes.
With concerns about that bill and a few of the other bills, and talked about exactly what I just talked about, the fact that the unfunded, in that piece of it, and then some more detail. So, yeah.
I think it's it for Facilities Finance Committee, met last night. Would they like to report out?
Yes, I can start. We're still in the early process of the budget. We're going to be asking the board to review. Everyone should have a graph in front of them, the number of responses. If you can go on the breakdown and see the comments as well, that will be beneficial. The graph that we do have, there's 3 categories that stood out above the rest for increased emphasis, and they were the STEM, tech, and ag, social emotional, and educator training, as well as teacher-student ratio. So they were at least 50 or more individuals have responded to those increased emphasis. So our next step is to review them, assess whether they are going to result in a monetary or a district change. For instance, if you read through the comments, one individual had made a suggestion about the Townsend School. We have discussed the drop-off and pickup, on North Street. It's a complete disaster a lot of times. This individual lined the buses up front, moved the drop-off and pickup around back in a rotation where the people don't get out of their vehicles, but they drive out and then your buses are here. That's definitely something that we can look at, and I don't know what the results of, having buses being lined up there and stopping traffic, because the red lights would be on and they're having traffic come down the other side of the street. But those are things that we really need to take into consideration, especially when we're doing the facilities, and what is best. We've talked about cutouts there. So we had, what was it, like 118? 118 responses, and the comments.
Terrific.
Yeah, it was very, a very good outcome. The comments are very useful. So if you can just review them and then, look at the graph and, pay attention to those increase in emphasis.
And there's other graphs. This is just the one. There's other graphs, and we thank Kevin for doing this as magic with the pivot tables.
Yep.
Apparently, we've got another board member who knows how to do it, which we're going to remember as well. We pull some graphics in there. So in the library facilities committee meeting from last night, there's a number of attachments. Everything from that was reviewed last night, and then this data as well.
Right. Currently, we're working at a 1.6 deficit. We are still waiting for final high cost aids and whether or not we secure a grant for the social workers. So if that comes into play, then, obviously that would reduce. And as we get closer, we will need to consider going out to our full allowable cap and what our comfort level will be for a fund balance. And keep that in mind when we're developing the budget. So we have a lot of work to do yet, but we're moving right along. We're scheduling another meeting in January
For the full board.
for the
Yeah.
full board.
I think that was one of the main takeaways, is that we're at the point where we feel we need the full board's perspective on prioritizing the results of the survey, basically, and what the focus areas are gonna be for the budget next year. So we talked about having another board meeting in the first 2 weeks of January, because we only have one full meeting in January, so.
And prioritizing any potential budget reductions that may be needed at the end of the day to close the gap.
So, yeah, everybody that responded to that survey, it's very helpful and we really appreciate it. So, it's good.
So before we exit from this, if everybody could take a look at your calendars, maybe not now, but take a look at your calendars for, first couple weeks after the holidays, and let Corey know, and she'll do her magic, and keep reminding everybody to find out what dates don't work, and we'll see if we can't come together.
Because our regular scheduled meeting is
16th.
January 16th.
Right.
And then we
So-
also have another meeting for facilities on the 9th.
Facilities is on the 9th.
The whole idea is that we want to stay on the budget schedule, basically, and not
Right.
have to change that. So if we can get another board meeting for the 16th.
So we have the 9th, the 16th, and the 23rd for meetings in January.
What's one more?
I just throwing it out there. We got 2 weeks off in January. Which 2 weeks would that be?
Right, exactly.
I'm not seeing it here. It's definitely not gonna be a Tuesday, obviously, so if we want to, does everybody have a generic day that doesn't work? Like, does Wednesdays not work for people? Does Mondays not work?
Mondays are usually
I
out
will
for
be out of
me.
town the 9th, 10th, and 11th, so
Okay.
that'll probably take out that week.
Is it something we can take? Is it something we can take up on the 16th, or you think that's too late? I mean, can we combine it with the 16th meeting and have an open discussion workshop on that, or?
Well, so there's two things. The 16th will be it's scheduled in the budget calendar to have an update.
So she would need that information
Correct.
before.
And when the workshop will be a combination of open and executive, because you'll get into personnel conversations when we start talking about potential reductions. So the 16th, it may be rather long of a meeting with discussions and impacts, and the administrators will be there to discuss any impacts of any reductions that are discussed and prioritized, or the board may feel eliminated, or whatever the case may be. So I don't know if the 16th, that may be, unless you can start early.
So 9 through 11's out. We want everybody present. So you
Maybe
have,
the 3rd or 4th.
I've got a conflict on the 4th.
I have a conflict on the 4th. 3rd's
3rd.
looks okay to me.
3rd's good for me.
Wednesday the 3rd.
Okay, I could send out an email about the 3rd. Would that be at 5 o'clock? 5:30, 6?
We don't need to hold you guys any later.
We'll be back till the 9th.
You're not back till the 9th? Well,
The 11th?
If we do the 16th, it can't push us back that much, right? Or is that?
Well, if we did it on the 16th, you have two choices. You can extend your meeting from 6 o'clock till, probably 9, 10 o'clock, or you start, I'd say you need to have at least an hour to 2 hours scheduled for this, depending on where the conversations go.
Right.
So I don't know what you want to do. I mean, we'll do, from our perspective, we'll make whatever work and make it happen.
I mean,
I'm
A
fine with
Friday's not ideal, but
Yeah, but I think we have
Friday or
games on,
Saturday, if you need to.
I think we have games on Fridays.
I'm fine with going along with 16. That's just-
Yeah.
No? Okay.
One of us gets up early to go to work, so
Who's that?
I don't know, I'm sure one of them.
Oh,
You're back, you're not back, you're back the 11th, you said? But it's gonna be late when you get back?
Going to Tennessee, so.
Okay. How about Monday the 15th? Actually, that's a Martin Luther
King.
King, it's a holiday. I'm trying, I really am.
so when is
I
our,
don't know that 'cause I'm
when
trying
is
to
our
schedule
next
something.
budget date? Like if we push it out,
The 16th is the report. I mean, we can change the budget calendar if it doesn't work. We can also have the report out it'll be wherever it is at that point in time, and then have the workshop wherever we can fit in the workshop, and then that next report out will be,
because we're not
A little
gonna
bit
hear
squeezed.
anything from the state until
No.
mid-February.
no.
So even if we push it out the 17th or 18th, that'd be 2 meetings that
Right.
week, but
you do have a workshop scheduled on February 28th. That's
yeah.
generally when you're farther along.
Yeah, that's too
Yeah.
far out. Too far out for Meg's development.
right.
17, 18,
17 or 18th,
Wednesday or Thursday?
either one's good for me.
I think either of those will work.
Any athletic conflicts?
17th, I think there's a home game, girls game. The 18th, I don't think so.
But we can work around that.
18th is better for me.
Either date works for me.
Okay.
So I guess let's just put out the 17, 18, favoring 18,
Mm-hmm.
is that what you're saying?
There's conflicts. Either day, it doesn't.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're all gonna have conflicts.
Yeah.
Did everybody favor the 17th or 18th?
Wednesdays are easier for me than Thursdays.
I don't think I have a
All my
preference.
stuff across the parking lot's usually on Thursdays, so that's why it's just,
Oh, I see.
but but it's,
I'd say put out both days.
Yeah.
and then we just see
Both
what's.
days?
Yep,
Yeah.
sounds good. It'd be nice to have everybody here if we can. That would be the main emphasis.
Yeah, and the goal, just so everybody understands, is really Meg is looking for direction of what to present with scenarios depending on how the funding comes in and the expenses come in. So she needs some direction regarding, where the board is with discussion on tax cap, where the board is in discussion on fund balance, and what, depending on how things play out, where you want it at the end of the day and where you want to remain. And then that is going to answer the expense-driven discussions, and then direction from the board on the list of potential expense reductions and prioritizing those. So in other words, if it needs to be $50,000, then we're prioritized, and Meg can put together the scenarios to present to the board for consideration. So just to help her and I and the administrator know where we're going, and give us some guidance so that we come to you with more of a thorough work-through plan, rather than getting a late process and still too many decisions to still be made.
And is the admin gonna go through the increased emphasis to see if that is something that's monetary, or whether changes can be within the district?
We'll look at those
Okay.
and do an analysis
'Cause
to
that'll
see if
give
there's
us an
anything that's
idea as well.
outside.
Yeah.
It's like we know social emotional obviously is one of the highest measures that was indicated on there, and of course we added two social
To
workers.
social work, right.
And, so, we know that's a significant impact in there, so, absolutely.
And then that will be stuff that we can report out on to the
Yep.
general public, determine that.
Right, at the end, when we
Yep.
start talking about any ads or reductions or anything of that nature.
I do see that Meg has a conflict on the 18th in the evening. I can verify with her if that's
Yeah, we need her
something she
here.
can't avoid.
Okay,
Well, like I said, I'm a fan of my Friday nights, but if there's not a conflict there, just definitely have.
We'll work through it. It's not the easiest group to coordinate, but we'll get
Oh, I
there.
understand.
We can take
I feel for Corey every time we have to do a calendar, I feel bad.
Busy people, that's all.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, our board retreat is still gonna be held on January 23rd,
Correct.
and that is with Jennifer Matthews, Ferrer and Forenza. Correspondence.
We have a couple of items.
I'll talk through them.
There is the BOCES report on cooperative purchasing savings.
Yep, this is a service report that they gave us. I presented this to the board last year when they sent it to us. It's just their annual report of showing what the service has saved for us and directly as a district through their bid processes and various things. So just for your information.
The participation chart, is that showing majority of, yeah, it's just showing a majority. I'm just trying to look at, it seems like that would be the majority of our savings based on that chart. That's not actually what that chart's telling us, right? Our
I think
chart's
it's the
actually saying how much
participation.
we actually put into the system. Right, like your food is our biggest expense, but we only, percentage of savings over that's only 16%, where you have 34.43 in our athletic bid.
Right,
Is the
I think
highest, right?
Right, the
Okay.
total that we purchased through them, 53.59% of what we purchase is food.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So that's not a chart of our actual savings.
Correct.
And so total saved after cost of service is $35,943.24 by using this cooperative purchasing
Yep.
agreement.
And the other item, there's a link to the New York State report card.
So if you remember, I had mentioned that the data, or we actually reported out after a curriculum committee, that the data was set to be released sometime December, January.
Today.
They actually have it out. The report card is populated on the public data site. They are currently, the RIC, our Regional Information Center, PT BOCES, attached to the South Central RIC, is populating the portal. That's the comparison charts and the charts where we pull the data from that shows how we do from year to year. When that gets populated, we'll pull our charts and details, and we'll give you that as a report as well, to catch up for the data that we couldn't report to you in the fall because the data wasn't available. So we'll play catch up with that, and then we'll answer any questions or any discussion regarding that when it comes out. So, and rather than wait, I don't want to wait till the next curriculum committee.
Do you think that would be done by our January meeting?
I
Just so it
don't
doesn't go
know.
too far?
I would guess they're already working on it. I had a meeting with the RIC last week, and they said that they were working on it already aggressively. So, but it's just it's a lot of stuff, that they got to get in there. But I would say probably, and we'll be able to turn it around quickly. It's on our end. The minute it's available, we'll have it done and out. I'll put it out immediately. Either if it's in between, we'll send it out to you Friday correspondence or whatever we're doing. We won't hold it. Okay. And we'll go from there. But our data, our current report card data, is live, so you can see our current information that you've already seen, but in that format on the public data set.
Okay, additions to the agenda.
We have one item. We had a late Friday afternoon, we had a bid opening for special education transportation. And we received one bid, and that's there tonight for you to award. If you choose, it's new business item 8C, and that would go to A&D busing.
If you recall, the emergency contract that you approved in the last 2 months, because we had a correction, we had to redo it. This is linked to that. That was an emergency contract so that the proper bid timeline could be done, so this is linked to the same transportation. It's not a new transportation, but it's now the contract for it.
And no other bids come in?
Just one.
Yeah. And that's been the pattern for the last few years for any additional. We have two servicing our area,
Mhm.
and one of them will only bid if they have the personnel and be able to do it. And
Sense.
then when they don't, this one tends to.
We're up to the consent agenda. Is there any discussion on financial reports, transfer of funds, declaring a surplus, accepting the MOA for retiree employment, personnel resignation, personnel unpaid leave of absence, personnel appointments, or personnel athletic recommendations? Hearing none, I accept a motion from someone to accept the
I'll make a
consent
motion.
agenda.
I'll second.
Motion is seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is passed. New business. A lot of donations this month.
Generous donations.
Yeah, so the resolve that upon the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education does hereby accept the following donations with sincere appreciation. $4,000 from William O'Neill to the Regina Austin O'Neill Butcher and Chuck Butcher Endowment Fund in memory of Thomas H. O'Neill and Celia Austin O'Neill. $1,500 from William O'Neill to the Thomas H. O'Neill Memorial Fund. $300 from Farm Credit East to the Walton FFA chapter. $725 from a fundraiser organized by TAs and Ashley Brown to benefit the boys' varsity baseball program towards the purchase of new indoor batting cage. $250 from Lions International Club of Walton to the AVP program. Dental hygiene kits from United Way of Mid-Rural New York for every student grades K through 5 at Townsend Elementary School. $300 from Lotterette Trucking Company to the Jeremy G. Fletcher Wrestling Sportsmanship Award in memory of Jeremy, and $50 from Frank Ward to the Walton FFA chapter towards an FFA jacket. Do we have a motion to accept those donations?
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion is seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. New business B, personnel appointment. Appointment of Deborah Holt, teacher aide, non-competitive, and Mackenzie Gray, part-time cashier, non-competitive. Any discussion on those? I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. And the addition to the agenda, which would be the award the transportation bid from A&D Bus Service. Any discussion on that?
I'll move the motion.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is awarded. And on to old business appointment of officers and others. This is the appointment of Brett Wood for asbestos designee, as well as a school pesticide representative. Any discussion on that? Entertain a
That
motion?
date is when Brett
Correct.
officially starts. Okay.
Right.
January
There's a gap that Millard is filling.
Okay, that start date is January 8th.
Mhm.
Any further discussion on that? Entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are carried. And finally, policy updates. Mr. Verweer?
So we have policies for review. Number 4321.13, preschool special education. 4321.14, special education personnel. 5405, student wellness, and 6240, investments.
Those are just for review to keep us up to speed on a rotation.
I think that should go in the charter too. the Kevin Reese.
I second that. Kevin, you've
Making that a policy.
That's right.
You've done an excellent job. Paul was very proud, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And we also have, next on the agenda is policy first reading. This is a one that's been handed down, 8130.2 workplace violence prevention for first reading. This came down from NISBA as a recommendation, correct?
Correct. The law, this is a new law that goes into effect on January 4th, and there's a tight timeline, and the number one thing that has to happen, I think almost within 30 days, is the board policy. And this is from NISBA, what they're recommended. It is what it is. It's law, and it goes through, and we're working on the other pieces, the other regulations and exhibits and things of that nature, and going through those processes. So it's a good process. I mean, we have, thankfully, with the work that Walton has done over the years, especially with the work that Rick has done as safety officer, we are easily going to meet the new law and the new areas and focus that need to be in place. We have a safety team that has all the components of the bargaining units and staff already in place, which is one of the big hurdles. And we have some reviews and some annual processes that we have to go through that actually already happen for us with the way the committee operates, but now we have to do it in a formalized manner and capture agendas and make sure that we're having certain conversations using certain documents that they're providing to us. So more to come on that, but this will be, if we get the policy through, and then we'll be attaching the policy and the approved and reviewed regulations and exhibits to the safety, our overall safety policy and safety plan for next year's adoption as well. So we have a lot to do, and nice little surprise, 3 weeks before it went into effect, we got a warning, and here it is. But we have like 30, 60, and 120 days to get various things in place after the 4th. So appreciate the understanding on this.
Mr. Brewer, would you like to make the official motion for the first reading?
I'm gonna read it or just make the motion?
Either one, your choice.
All right, so first reading for policy 8130.2, workplace violence prevention.
We have a second on that to adopt it?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried for the first reading. And we are up to administrative remarks. Turn it over to you.
Okay. Yep, we'll start with Melanie.
So as always, Townsend is a pretty busy place in December with lots of holiday crafts and activities being done outside, inside for the staff and the teachers. One new thing that we did was our PTA hosted a hot cocoa and bake sale out front of Townsend at dismissal. This was to raise money for our 5th grade field trip, and it was by donation to New York City. And we did pretty well. I don't know our final total yet, but the families baked the cookies, donated them, and it turned out pretty well. So it looks like they're gonna wanna do that again in the future. So that was really nice to see.
Nice.
Moving forward into January, we're gonna be looking at mid-year assessments. So the Fast Bridge and iReady testing will be coming when we return from break.
Mr. Ward.
The middle school, we had our winter concert last week. We did a little reorganizing of the ensembles. Our chorus is now 6 to 8. It's increased the numbers of students. Scheduling wise, it was tough in the past few years to get it to work out, so that became a positive. We also have enough students to have a separate 6th grade orchestra and 7-8 orchestra. Both of them sounded good. All our groups sounded good. We had a few duets. Kids got up there and your granddaughter did a fantastic job up there. They really sounded good. Like I said, all of them were good, but the 6th grade band I thought kind of stole the show. I thought they were fantastic. There's close to 30 members. Hopefully they continue to want to be involved, and they sounded great.
It was a nice turnout too.
Yeah, it was. And also, I put on the report that the numbers of our winter athletics, You can see that kind of Downsville helped bail us out a little bit as far as number of student athletes in the fall. And for some of the sports here in the winter, we've kind of helped bail them out so they can offer those programs. So, hasn't been a perfect partnership because nothing ever is when you start, but it's running very smoothly, and it helped doing soccer last year, so we could kind of see the areas where we really needed to improve. It's going smoothly. Our modified boys numbers, there's over 30 kids. It worked out fantastic that they provided a coach so we were able to divide into 3 teams, get the kids enough playing time and experience, and let them have a good experience.
I'll say the JV varsity basketball game, first home game in Downsville, there was no place to sit. That was packed. So that was nice to see. I'm sure the community in Downsville was very, very happy to see that. There literally was standing room. So very.
And that's something I think we'll have to consider, what games we have where based on some of the farther places. It's not as nice to send them to Downsville if they're coming over here to play, but it's going to bring less fans and their gym being a little smaller. But it's something that we need to think about.
I bet the community was thoroughly impressed with how well that meshed and how many people turned out to support the teams. It was impressive. I know we ended up on the wrong side of the winning bracket on that one, but the teams are doing well.
I just have a quick question from this sector.
Yeah.
The STEM scope coach, what is that exactly? I was interested to hear more.
So STEM Scopes is the program that we've adopted for our science program, and we have a virtual coach that's coaching the teachers through the program. So they've had it, we piloted it last year, so they've only had it a few months this year as the whole building. So she really talks through like how's it going, the lessons, what worked, what didn't work, and she helps them problem solve. She gives them resources. She will actually be coming in district to our January conference day to work with the teachers.
Okay.
And that's the curriculum that needed to be adopted to align us to the next
generation
standards as required by New York State. So the whole building was involved in, well, the teachers who were affected were involved in that exploration. And I believe that runs through BOCES, right? That's part of the BOCES collaboration.
They're part of it, I don't know.
The STEM, the science kits, there's pieces of
Yes,
it,
the
right?
science kits and everything comes to BOCES.
Yep.
But it's great to have her because, I don't know the program like fluently like she does, and she's just a wealth of information for our staff.
Thank you.
And I like the fact of reading about the classroom aides and the crisis committee training.
Yes, and I've got really good feedback from the aides, and, they feel a little more comfortable with de-escalation situations, and they're able to talk some of the kids down. It's not always perfect, but they came away with some new ideas, which was nice.
Well, and the more training they get,
Absolutely.
the more comfortable they'll be. So that was very good. Everybody needs to be on the same page.
Yes.
Agree with that.
And it's steps in the right direction.
And that program requires an annual update.
Yep,
Right,
yearly
every
they'll
year.
have to go through the training.
Is that on-site training or?
We have a staff member that's fully trained, and she could certify the staff, so
Oh,
it's
okay.
excellent, it's right in the building.
We sent the person for turnkey training, so they're a facilitator.
Great.
Excellent.
Anything else? On the high school, just to highlight a couple things, the winter concert is tomorrow night, right, 20th, here for the high school. And previous report, Mr. Loomis talked about the Technical Honor Society and what students received it. We had mentioned in that meeting, we're gonna report back on what the attributes were and the characteristics of the Technical Honor Society, so that's listed here. 85 average in CTE, 80 overall, including the homeschool, 8 or fewer unexcused absences for the program, CTE teacher nomination, and hitting the characteristics of leadership, scholarship, skills, honesty, citizenship, service, and responsibility. They have to interview, they have to complete a resume, a written piece, and have 2 letters of recommendation. So it's a pretty good process.
It
So,
is.
very impressive that we
It's
had
well
as many kids
deserved
as
for
we
the
had.
students that participate in it.
So that's all I have there.
Will the will the drama club performance be added to our sign?
Yes, any public, correct, Rick? Any public performance where we invite the public in, that's not internal, we push out to the sign. Yep,
So notified.
Consider, yeah, I was gonna say, consider yourself notified, sir.
That's how we feel. Notify us.
January 5th, January 6th, 5 PM.
Because I didn't realize until the letter
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was
Okay.
coming right up.
Yeah, it's sneaking up quickly with the holiday. And from my end, just to remind the board, if you don't easily miss, we do have the Townsend School Gymnasium acoustic panels for the capital outlay scheduled for next week. So that will happen on the two long sides. If you remember, we're doing the long sides this year. That's what fit in the budget. They will be on site. They might be delivering some things this weekend. They'll be on site the 26th, and they'll have it done by the end of that week. So that'll be done. And then later, I think April, we're looking at April or later, then we'll work on the others. So
What was the color of those again?
Oh,
Not
man.
red.
You and I step back. You remember right.
I don't remember the actual name of it. It's a neutral color, I believe, right? Wasn't
I
it?
know they're not blue.
And they're not red,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mr. Dumont. What?
yeah.
No.
That'd be
So-
nice, be a nice upgrade though.
We'll give, yes, and we'll give you the update on how that goes, as we go through. Ethan Gardner, CNS, will be here on site all week. That's the benefit of us having them on annually. If you remember, we did that process last year. They're doing the capital outlays, you're just absorbing that as part of that overall commitment to us, as well as being on our fiscal, or our facilities development team. So that relationship is working very well. That's all I have.
Okay. I don't believe there's any need for an executive session, so I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.